Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Star Chamber Investigations Zoom meeting. And we're doing this on a Saturday evening. And it's a special segment of the Star Chamber investigation. Tonight, I'm going to be moderating and not doing any storytelling whatsoever. Very unusual. And then we have four of our top fellows and star members of the Star Chamber. And we have, in the order of presentation, each one of them has a story to tell and it will present it. It'll typically take 20 minutes to present the story, including time for question and answers. I leave that up to each of the individual presenters of how they want to deliver their messages tonight. We're going to start with Carrie from North Carolina. And then we're going to go with Shirley, who's from Arizona, but spent quite a considerable amount of time in North Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then we're going to go to Rose, who is coming to us from Ontario, Canada. And she's going to speak on regarding point of care or precision medicine. Carrie's going to talk about Burma and what things were happening in World War II regarding her uncle and her father during the Great World War II. It was in all the newspapers. I'm sure you've heard about it. And then Shirley's going to talk about loose lips sink ships. And she's going to talk about pledging allegiance to a 13-stripe flag and being patriotic, pledging your allegiance. And the great state that it ain't, the Lone Star State of Texas. And then we're going to finish with Jennifer, who is a well-known member and has done the most videos with me to date. And Jennifer's going to take the most elaborate and broad topic, but underpins everybody's work tonight: pacification and control from a military perspective, how the military infiltrates itself into all aspects of our lives. All right, so let's just start with you, Carrie. What salient points will you make tonight? We're going to go around real quick, just hear from each one of you. And welcome to the show, Carrie. You have the floor.
Thank you. I just have some information that has to do with World War II and a story that I heard about my dad and his co-pilot and a curious cargo that they carried cargo from Burma, India, and I think they were stationed out of Shanghai.
The Beast from the East?
The Beast from the East is one of the cargo items they had to get to trial for war
Okay.
crimes.
Thank you. Okay, Shirley, what are you going to speak on tonight?
Well, I'm going to talk about kind of a connection from our last video on strange things happening in Mockingbird Lane or on Mockingbird Lane. And I had some questions from people that I really appreciate questions. And so I thought I'd talk about that, hopefully to clarify some things. And we just ran out of time. So I wanted to talk some more about that and also how it goes and ties into control and pacification.
Okay, very good. Rose, what is your subject tonight?
Yes, so what I would like to share tonight is my work experience in an innovative biotech company from 1998 to 2006. And they were focused on point of care. They're one of the first companies that were successful at point of care diagnostics. And the experience that I had there also taught me something about how advanced surveillance was. And that is something I would like to share for this group.
Okay, great. Jennifer, what are you going to speak to?
Well, I'll be talking primarily about the role of television in indoctrinating the masses, myself included, starting in the 1950s with childhood programming. I make the argument that television really is like dopamine. It activates the reward center of the brain, and that's how people get addicted and start to believe everything that they are told on television. I look at it this way: the television set is like the syringe, and the programming is the drug. And we've all been vaccinated with the programming of television through years and years of entertainment and advertising. And I can sort of joke about it, but it's actually quite serious.
Yes, it was a precursor to point of care, only it was point of care, poppycock, balderdash, mendacity, propaganda, point of care.
Yes.
Like, I care about brainwashing you. So
Yes.
watch TV.
Yes.
Okay, before I turn the show over to Carrie, I want to just everybody focus on this satanic golden dome temple behind me. This is Little St. James Island, which is part of the Virgin Islands. It's associated with Jeffrey Epstein, even though Jeffrey Epstein most definitely doesn't have a pot to piss in. He doesn't own this building, doesn't own the island, he doesn't own the Virgin Islands, he doesn't own any of the homes that he had a bedroom in. He doesn't own anything. He's just an operator, okay, in military intelligence, if you haven't figured it out by now. He's an important military intelligence person, as are another 10,000 Jeffrey Epstein clones that are doing his exact same job in other places in the world. Do you know how many stripes there are on this rectangular building? From blue to blue, from the bottom to the top, there's 13 stripes, making it a clone of the colonial flag, the United States of America, Stars and Stripes. They have 13 stripes also. And so you have a situation where we have a temple where undoubtedly little girls were molested under the age of 18 in this building. And perhaps some children, boys and girls, were murdered in this temple. Now, I haven't heard the media talk about any murders going on here, but it's entirely possible if there were a murder there and you cremated the remains. How the heck would I know if it was an orphan child or a runaway or a child trafficked from another country, for example, flown in to be murdered here? Do you think you could do that at Little St. James Island? Of course you could. You know, you could do it in Paris, France, and you could do it in Upper East Side, Manhattan, New York, too. You can do it in San Francisco. You can do it in Holmby Hills. You can do it anywhere on the planet Earth. You fly children in, murder them, and you have the adults on the perimeter all participating in what is a satanic ritual abuse of a child. And everyone is implicated in the crime, even though they're just spectating, right? I've heard of that happening in Paris, and I've heard about it happening in Rome, Italy. I have not heard about it on Little St. James or Zorro Ranch, which today has been renamed Rancho de San Rafael. And, you know, whatever they were doing with Jeffrey Epstein, they're doing now with the Texas Christian Coalition, who apparently owns the property now. It's the Texas Christians. Okay, Carrie, you have the floor. Tell us your story.
Okay. Well, just first off, I am born in California, Los Angeles. We just want to make sure we all know that I started there. I grew up in Connecticut, and I've been in North Carolina for quite a few decades. Had an aunt that retired to Florida, like most people do out in New England, and I reconnected with him because I lost my dad when I was 8. Left behind a large family. Um, and my uncle reconnected with me later on in the late 90s and let me know some things about my dad and how his co-pilot from World War II had been looking for him in the 70s and found out that, well, he had died in 66. So Chet connected with me and provided me copies of their flight school pictures and a lot of stories about their time in Shanghai, and they were providing cargo and rations throughout in Burma and India, and Shanghai was a headquarters for so many things going on in the war, and I think that's where they took care of everything.
Okay.
They got
Chet
things
is your
done.
uncle?
They
Chet?
went to the dentist and things like that.
Now, just to be clear, Chet is your uncle?
Chet was my dad's co-pilot. It was
Oh, it's
my
your
uncle
dad's.
that let me know about this person. That's how he
Okay.
was vetted.
Okay.
And
Do you
then
want to say the name of your father or not?
my father is Les, and he died
Lester.
when I was 8. So he died in 1966.
Okay. Yeah, but Chet is the co-pilot of your father, Lester, in the South Pacific area from Burma to Shanghai to parts of India. Okay.
Correct.
Continue.
And they really had quite a time there. They did rickshaw racing, and he flew over the Great Wall when he shouldn't have, and it just lots of harrowing experience.
Do you know
But
the timeline on their
this
activities?
is 40, this is 45.
1945, well, 1944 to 1945,
Yes,
a
they
year
went to
and a half,
school
18
in
months.
44, and I think it was late 44. So 45 is when they were in,
Okay.
and they were there till the end.
Okay.
So in the end, they were after, I guess we had won the war. They still had a lot of trials that had to take place in Shanghai. And one of their in custody, they had someone called the Beast of the East, uh, Isamu Ishihara.
Was he
That
a
was,
commander of a prisoner of war camp?
yes, he was known for really horrible torture.
Torture of prisoners of war.
Correct. Um,
Okay. And he's being held in Shanghai.
yeah, he was known for his torture for on American POWs. And I noticed that he was age 36, 37 at the start, which was early 1946.
Okay. Thank you.
And he was sentenced to life in prison. And I sent you some of the articles, and I know they're hard to read.
Yeah, I
Um,
tried to post them, but Zoom wouldn't, it cropped them, so it was useless. They only showed the middle part. But yeah, there was all this very salacious articles about the cruelty of this. He would have been 33, 34, 35 when he was ordering torture and abuse of American POWs. And then it's interesting, you're saying he fell into the hands of the Chinese and they moved him to Shanghai. So then where does the story pick up? How did you learned of this through Chet, the co-pilot of your father?
that was their biggest, mission was carrying him to the in custody and bringing him
In
to
war
trial.
trials. So they
Right.
flew to Shanghai, picked up the prisoner who was the former governor or warden of a POW camp, and they flew him to where they held the World War II post-war crime tribunal.
Right.
Okay, that's very important duty. Okay.
Yeah, I want to dig a lot deeper and find out more, but I don't know how much of it is, confidential. But
Okay, but you go on because this fellow, the media dubbed him the Beast of the East, and he had a reputation of extreme cruelty to the American POWs. But that's not the end of the story. He is convicted, and he's not given death. He's given life imprisonment. Is that right?
correct. And he thought it was cruel, and
Okay.
he appealed it. He tried
Okay.
to plead insanity as well. Now, I know that his history was he started out as a teacher of English as a second language in Honolulu. So,
Before World War II began.
correct, before Pearl Harbor. He was
Isn't that
probably
interesting?
there about that time.
He was probably recruited there by the, Americans.
That's what's weird about his role. And,
He's
how much of it
Japanese,
we
you know,
can
but he learned English in Honolulu.
he taught it.
Oh, he taught English.
Yes, and he was used as an interpreter in the
Okay.
prison, and
Well,
then
that makes sense.
then he got drunk with power, I guess, and he became a torturer.
Kind of torpedoes the whole the Jap. We demeaned the Japanese people. We called them Japs, and then we ran them off into prison camps. Like Trump smart cities. We called them re-education camps or internment. I think they were called internment camps in Utah and in Montana and in California, in the upper northeast corner of California. That's where they sent Mr. Sulu from the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, Captain Kirk. His Mr. Sulu was sent in an internment camp from Los Angeles up to the hinterlands. All right. So anyway, continue on with your story about what happened after the tribunal, and he appealed his life sentence. Then what happened?
I don't think he succeeded. I just thought it was curious when I looked up his name that he shows up on Legacy as or that name, Isamu Ishihara. I don't
Okay.
know how popular that is in Japan or Hawaii, but I thought it was curious that there is a Isamu Ishihara whose birth is March 22nd of 1911.
Okay.
He doesn't say that he's born in the States. I don't believe that. That's so, but he died in 98 at age 87, which would fit this person in Green Hills. He's buried at Green Hills Memorial Park in Rancho Palos Verdes, Los Angeles County.
Well, that's where Sharon Tate's parents live there. So in other
I
words,
think
they
he
put
was an
the
extra. I
Japanese.
think he was an actor. I think he's
Yes,
part of everything.
that's where they murdered Tony Scott, and that's where Timothy Leary and Charlie Manson were for about 18 months. In that zip code, the same zip code that you got the beast from the east is hanging out where Sharon Tate's father, Timothy Leary, Charlie Manson, and later Tony Scott, who does a swan dive off the Vincent Thomas Bridge to his death and leaves not one, not two, but 3 suicide notes. In case you didn't find the first one, I got 2 backups. All right, so that's interesting. He ends up in Rancho Palos Verdes, which that's where Tiger Woods flipped his car. That's where there's a big Donald Trump, golf tournament there. It's nice. It's really great weather. That's where you pick up the ferry to go zip out to Santa Catalina Island, where Natalie Wood drowned. You pick up right there. That's where Olivia Newton-John's last boyfriend disappeared, coming back from a fishing trip. Right where you're saying the beast of the East, he died there. Yeah, well, Olivia Newton-John's boyfriend disappeared there too.
I could be wrong, but it just fits so well. This is the guy
Yeah.
that did the windlass torture, is putting the fingertips all the way back to the wrist backwards.
Okay. Well, that's graphic.
That was one of the.
It's funny because I had a nightmare the other night about Ernst and Ernst in San Francisco, and I actually did work with a guy named Paul Ishizuka, which is a little different than the name that you're describing, but and Paul was fine. I have, my wrists are okay, right? I mean, he didn't do anything. He was a nice enough fellow, and he worked with Tom Camp with me, and we got along. There was no problem. Nobody got killed. Nobody got tortured. But it's interesting because Paul Ishizuka, he went on to be a chief financial officer of an acute care hospital, practicing point of care medicine. Yeah, Paul Ishizuka, who is not a beast from the East. He's a beast from the West. All right. So any final thoughts or question? You want to open up for questions, Carrie?
Sure.
What does everybody in the Star Chamber think? Anybody?
Well, it's just it's really hard to think that the Beast of the East, who was torturing American soldiers, right, was previously in Hawaii giving English lessons. Am I right?
He was
Is that what it
teaching
said?
English in
Yeah.
I
Honolulu.
think it was tutoring.
Not just
Yeah,
anywhere.
or
It's not just
I think it
hanging
was
out in
language.
the
Yeah.
sugar cane. He's in Honolulu where the Navy base is and the United States Enterprise aircraft carrier is. He's not in some part of
Well,
the big island in Hilo hiding away. He's in the main military part of Hawaii.
oh, okay. Well, but he had a real role. He was teaching, and and then he ends up being a torturer. That's interesting.
Then he ends up dying, where Tiger Woods flipped his car and
That's
Timothy
quite a
Leary and
career. That's quite
Sharon
a
Tate's
career
parents
arc.
live.
Yeah, I know. That's bizarre too.
Small world.
Bizarre.
Rose, any
Yes.
things come to mind?
Well, I'm just trying to understand Chet and Les, the co-pilot, and Carrie's father. Explain to me again, how did they get connected with this torturer?
They carried supplies, and one of their final assignments was taking him from custody to custody.
He's cargo. They carried, rations or weapons.
Okay.
But they also could traffic humans too, right? So this
Okay.
POW commander was a human cargo. And
Okay.
Like expediting Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, he'll fly Hannibal Lecter to where they're going to have the military court martial, crimes against humanity, which you notice we didn't have one of those for Jeffrey Epstein, but apparently we had one for the Beast of the East. And I guess it wasn't life imprisonment because he died in Los Angeles near a golf course. It couldn't be
That's
that
what
bad.
Wow. Sounds like a story to me.
That's why Carrie's on the Star Chamber Investigations, because we cover the stories that no one else will cover. We do the Charlie Brown Christmas trees on this channel. Nobody wants these sort of like spit out stories. Nobody wants them, but I love them. These are great. Okay, so if that's any more questions, we'll move on to Shirley goes next. Go ahead, Shirley.
I just want to say it sounds pretty in line with all the stuff that you're teaching, is that the person who is doing, off things ends up in a really, really nice place. And that's it. Everything's just, covered up. Life is good,
I mean,
for
we
them.
got the child molester back here, Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't live in the ghetto. He lives in Palm Beach, Florida. He lives in Paris, France. He lives in Upper West Side Manhattan. He lives anywhere he damn well pleases, right? He's got homes throughout the world. And
No
they're
convictions.
not in a ghetto. Everything is real expensive, high ceilings, artwork everywhere. And meanwhile, he's a pervert.
Yeah.
And he really is. I mean, they picked the right person from Brooklyn. He's from Brooklyn. And by the way, so is his accountant and his lawyer, who were asked the questions this week. Did you ever consider resigning from the account when you heard the testimony of these women, these young girls? And they said, well, I thought about it, but I believe Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, where else can I make $100 million? Okay. Which goes to pacification and control, because normally you wouldn't want to have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. But if I said to you, but what if you can make $60 to $100 million over the next 10 years? Would that interest you? Well, yeah, that does. Okay. I'll make you the trustee of my estate. Okay. And give you power of attorney. You got a deal. So in other words, you can purchase. People do things they normally wouldn't do if they're controlled. You can control people with money, and you can control people with tornadoes, and you can control people with threats and intimidation, right? Remember Jack Kennedy's talk? It's subversion, not free choice. It's intimidation, not free election. I guess it's subversion, not free election. It's intimidation, not free choice. And if it's $100 million cash, you don't have to argue much. All right, over to you, Shirley. Tell us your story about loose lip sync ships and follow up on your strange things on Mockingbird Lane.
Well, I've had some people ask me about, okay, who do you think is responsible? I'm a little confused. And I do think that for my husband's getting sick and passing away, I think that it is betrayal on all levels. I do think that, yeah, Raytheon and companies are part of the equation, and it trickles down to every level. And that's where exactly pacification and control falls right in there. And then with loose lip sink ships, well, I think that's kind of almost an excuse, really. It's something that we are programmed to hear and to follow. And I will give two examples of that. One, when my husband, the time of change was 2011 when he became very ill, and he ended up in the ICU for 5 days, and also then another 2.5 weeks. And we never got a chance to talk about that. He was in 3 weeks in the hospital, and then that took him on to years of dialysis and the medical system, being pulled into the medical system. And I know a lot of people understand when I say it's the Hotel California. Once you come in, you don't check out. So anyways, during that time, I had a friend from Trophy Club pass away. I had another friend's husband who was ex-military and also had transitioned into the corporate world. She was my good friend, and I didn't even know during that time when my husband was ill, her husband in 6 months became very ill, brain cancer. It was not an easy time. They operated on his brain, and he passed away during that time. And I was just devastated because this was a man that, even though she was my friend and I didn't have much connection with him, he was someone that you just knew the lights were on, and he was always very calm, but he was always, you could see it in his eyes. He was always aware of the situation. And he was someone that was physically fit. He would exercise. You would drive through town and he'd give you the 2-finger salute, like, how you doing? And he was someone who I felt good that he was in our community. He was patriotic. He believed in the flag. He believed in all that. And he was an eloquent speaker. We had a school meeting about bringing uniforms into the school, the public school. And that's when the kids were more junior high age, I believe. And he was one of the speakers that got up and talked. And he said, he presented both sides. He was very calm, but he said that he had spent most of his life in a uniform, and he never implied that he regretted it. He seemed proud that he was. But he said for the children, he wanted them to be at a point where they could make that decision themselves. The freedom that we hold dear to us, or we think we do. He wanted that he had a child, and he wanted that for him. And long story short, we all voted, the community, and it was turned down. We voted not to put uniforms into the school system. Now, I have conversations with a lot of parents, and they love having uniforms in their school, but that's okay. They're private schools for the most part, and that was their decision. But this was for public schools, and that's what the community decided on. And this is a man who, he was physically fit. He was physically fit. He was someone, when I drove by, I said, that man is going to live a long time. And he was not somebody that really knew my husband. We only had maybe a couple Christmas parties with kids together. And the only word I got back is, your husband knows how to handle himself in a social situation with alcohol present. So in other words, my husband didn't talk. He didn't talk. That's just example one, okay? And tragically, he passed away. And I felt that that was an injustice. There's something wrong that happened. It was the same time frame, my opinion. Okay. Example number two, my husband went through a lot, like I said, dialysis and different things in his medical situation. I think 2011 was actually maybe his expiration date that didn't happen. I feel that it's more of a eugenics program, my personal opinion. And in 2018, he ended up back in the hospital the weekend of Halloween. And he was very sick. And one of the doctors who I I felt good about, she was a good doctor. You know, there's the gamut. There's some stars, there's some people who are evil, and in between, I felt like most people wanted a paycheck. But anyways, she was somebody who did wound care, and she was always there intermittently, and she would talk to me, and I would get a good impression from her. I felt a good rapport with her. She would say, "You want to see the wound, the incision?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I did." He didn't want to, but I did. But anyways, long story short, he became ill, worse and worse. And then on Halloween night, I was exhausted. I was sitting with him in his hotel and I'm sorry, the hospital room. And all of a sudden, all these people showed up and I was kind of dozing because I was exhausted. And they said, "Oh, we got to do CPR," this whole group of people. Yeah, it was a very strange. I felt exhausted. I felt almost like I was drugged, but I don't take drugs. I don't drink, especially I have to always be on my game. And anyways, they did CPR on him. Now they put a respirator in. They had tied both wrists because they didn't want him touching the respirator.
Right.
I
Sounds
just
like a COVID treatment where you put
Yeah,
people
it
on
was
respirators,
terrible. It was terrible. And what I'm
use pneumonia.
skipping is before that evening when they were doing that, putting all that stuff on him,
Right.
they said it's time, if you have kids or something, it's time to bring them in. I would think about bringing them in. And he couldn't talk, but
No.
the only movement he could do is go like this to me, like, "Don't do it." So I knew exactly. It was, "Don't do it. Do not bring anybody in." I don't know what he heard or what he felt, but I just pushed them off and I said, "Well, later." But then we come later on in the evening with this whole thing where they're doing compressions on him. And I think it was so violent. I thought that his chest, the ribs, they must have broken every rib in his body. And people say, "Well, it is kind of violent," but his wrists kept moving up from the compressions. And afterwards, I was just in shock. And afterwards, the man who did the compressions, the young man, came over with a clipboard and a pen, and he said something to the effect of, "Here, you need to sign this, the DNR, or we're going to have to keep doing this."
Do not resuscitate. Is that what that
Mhm.
stands for? Yeah, I don't like
Yes,
these acronyms
I
on
know. I'm sorry, but
my brother doesn't, he can't. He's United States Marine. I told him 100 times, don't use acronyms. Every other word is an acronym. So it's funny how when I tell people don't do it, they do it anyway. So anyway,
yeah,
not
I have it written
resuscitate,
down here, but
die
you
is
know,
what that means. It's going to die.
do not resuscitate,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it's a eugenics order. That's that's hospital speak for eugenics.
Yeah,
DNR is you don't make any life-saving measures.
right. And that's
Signage.
what he
So
came
you
with the
had
clipboard
medical proxy for him.
and he said,
So,
"We're going to have to keep doing this. Let's just
okay.
sign it."
All
So
right.
I felt that that was Halloween night, and that's why they really were pushing to, any loved ones come in because they would not only see their dad, who they adore, be brutalized and mom signing paperwork under duress. And I think he didn't pass away that night, he passed away the next day. But I
Mhm.
really think that was the thing because that's what they do. They pick a day that you will remember. Every year will come around and you're going to remember Halloween because I've met people that have had bad
You're
things happen.
suggesting that that this didn't have to happen on Halloween, but
Right.
it made it into a ritual. You signed the do not resuscitate order on Halloween, and so you'll always remember that for the rest of your life. Trick or
Well, they
treat.
also wanted to take off the respirator and see how things go, and I pushed it off till the next day, and that's
Yeah.
when that did happen. So I really do. I believe that it's to produce trauma, trauma. Because if you look at the Epstein stuff,
Yes.
the one little girl, you look at the faces, and the one little girl's crying, and that she's crying, she's holding her private parts because that was her birthday present. So do you think every year on her birthday, she's going to think it's a great thing? She's going to remember that. Anybody else that has a birthday, they're going to remember that too. I met a lady in dialysis. She was terrified of Halloween, and that was before I knew anything. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, that's when they sacrifice children."
Hmm.
And
Satanic ritual abuse or
yes,
satanic
yes,
ritual
yes,
murder,
yes,
the SRM.
yes. Right.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
we have 5 minutes to kind of you want to have
Okay.
questions now, or do you have another point you want to make there, Shirley?
No, that was the main thing. I wanted to have that
Okay.
too. If
Anybody
anyone,
have questions for Shirley?
I do.
hey,
Shirley,
Jennifer.
is it possible that your husband's death and some of your friends' deaths could it have been connected to exposure to some kind of chemical that was used in the places where they worked? Anything like that? Did you ever suspect some sort of environmental hazard?
No, because they weren't in contact with each other.
Oh,
The one friend, I know her from school, one of the moms, and I was trying to help her with take her to chemotherapy because she had breast cancer. Um, yeah, no, she was very vivacious, but she had breast cancer. That she got that. My friend's husband, no correlation at all. That
But
I mean, he
I
was
think
in.
Jennifer's referring to something that your husband did. He worked at Raytheon
Oh,
Missile
I'm
Guidance.
sorry.
He worked at Bell Nokia Labs. He went away for weeks at a time in other countries. He didn't tell you what he did for a living. They do conduct experiments in Rwanda, Rhodesia, Vietnam, and it is entirely possible that if you hung out in any of those places, Africa or Southeast Asia, you're going to get Monsanto Roundup sprayed on you, as
Mhm.
well as Agent Orange, Agent Pink, Agent Azul. They have the whole
Right.
alphabet soup. It's not just orange. Orange, they have like 26 different flavors of defoliants. Now, anybody who collects this smart dust that's in the sky, you're getting a certain amount of arsenic and you're getting lots of aluminum. So your husband most definitely, since he works for military contractors exclusively, could have been subjected to whatever weapon systems that they were building in the different places they test out the stuff. Because you told me he worked at Nokia in building of the mobile phones. Well, you do know there's arsenic poison all over that factory. They build phones using arsenic poison. So your husband was subjected to arsenic poison unless he was in a hazardous mask suit the whole time, because they got
Yeah,
arsenic in all the places they build electronics, laptop
but that
computers
was
too.
yeah, that was a while ago. I don't think so because he didn't travel abroad, only to Finland that time. He went to
Okay.
Finland.
But you don't know
But
what he did in Finland. They make weapon systems in Finland, so
true, but
they have
it
chemicals
just
that they use. And wasn't he in charge of quality control, where he would go to the manufacturing plants?
no, he was in manufacturing in with Nokia in Texas. That's when he was
Okay.
home. But the thing is, it was fairly quick. His
Yeah, but when you're
so
subjected to Agent Orange, it could take 10 years to get terminal
well,
cancer. You
I'll tell
don't
you what,
get sick.
remdesivir during COVID. How about remdesivir? That was That was prescribed. I have a friend whose husband was prescribed during COVID remdesivir. She stopped it before. She saved his life so many times, but that's when his kidneys start to fail.
Yeah.
Remdesivir. It was on the thing that was the protocol.
Well, that was
for
once he
COVID.
was admitted into the ICU, but to get a person to go to the hospital, there has to be an accumulation of toxicity in their body already
True.
to make you
True.
sick. And once you get to the hospital, then the next person is gonna be Rose, who's going to talk about point of care medicine. Even though Rose didn't work in an acute care hospital, she worked on vendors who sell products to acute care hospitals and make medical decisions and use medical devices. And so I was a chief financial officer of an acute care hospital. And I've been in an ICU unit myself for 7 days and 6 nights. And then I was in a routine bed for 3 nights and 4 days. And then guess what? I checked myself out. And you want to know how I did that? I waited until Nurse Ratchet went to the bathroom, put my head out, looked both ways, wearing my, back reverse, I'm in my pajamas, that stupid, gown they give you, that, it doesn't even, I can't tie it. My hands don't, it's like I got the beast from the east, put me in this thing reverse direction. So I just bolted out the double doors, and there's always a taxi cab in the parking lot of a hospital. And I just came over, I dove into the back seat, and I go, get me out of here. It's a total jailbreak. And then you're like, well, you have to sign some forms. If you can find me, I'm gone. And I checked into a Hyatt Regency because I figured they'd go to my home, thinking I'd go there. And I went, no, I'm going to go somewhere they have no idea where I am. That's how I got out of 10 days. And look, I liked hospitals up until I spent 10 days in one. And then I realized I'm going to die here. Get me out of here. And then my healing began. I mean, I had a bunch of broken bones, which I couldn't have fixed myself. So the doctors fixed my broken bones, but everything else was about, morphine and pain control, they call it pain management. I call it doping you up. And you know what happens? Does it kill your pain? Yeah, it does, but it creates another problem. You know what that problem is? You don't go to the bathroom. That's a major problem. That's a major problem. It turns
always a side effect.
Your intestinal tract. So you want to get off the morphine ASAP. And I've been there for 10 days. And I had one of my clients say, hey, did you have a bowel movement? Did you go use the toilet? And I go, well, they had a catheter. And he goes, no, I'm talking about number 2. And I said, no. And he goes, and how many days have you been there? I said, been here 10 days. He goes, man, you got to get off the drugs, Daddy-O. And he was not joking. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was like Rosanna Dana. I thought I was going to die. And thank God I didn't. But if I had been there one more day, I would have exploded. Okay, so anyway, Shirley, final thoughts. And then we're going to go to precision medicine, Rose. But final thoughts, Shirley.
Well, thank you. And Jennifer, that's as much as I know. I guess anything's possible. So yeah. Appreciate your question.
Rose, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. Okay, so I'm going to share my experience at a biotech firm. It was formed in early 1992, and I joined them in 1998. The short form of this company is SDX, so that's what I'll call it. SDX specialized in rapid diagnostics of infectious diseases once it was received FDA approval of its rapid cardiac diagnostic test. And that happened in 96, 97. The company had a lot of promise, and we were FDA approved. We had good GMP and QA, QC. It was a fully integrated company. We had our own manufacturing, R&D, and sales force. It was a direct sales force. So this company had a lot of promise to sell into the rest of the world, with the US market being the first marketplace. The material components that we made in Toronto were extracted from our animal facilities, and they were proteins and antibodies, and they were put into this membrane. And then we shipped these components to our joint venture manufacturer in Princeton, New Jersey. And the owner of that assembly plant was a professor at Princeton, New Jersey, and he was from South Korea. So this company had clinical trial capabilities. And as I mentioned, it did have a seasoned sales force in the healthcare field. And we did target long-term care facilities and tier one hospitals, but we were trying to target all the hospitals, obviously in the States. But um, the sales started to ramp up, and we attracted other pharmaceutical companies to come to our company to do other possible joint ventures for point of care diagnostics with a pharmaceutical at the end of the road. And it was a very, very successful business plan. What happened, the story that I want to share with you relates to an event that happened shortly after 9/11. One of the scientists that was working in Canada, he was originally from Brooklyn, New Jersey, or New York, sorry, Brooklyn, New York. He sent, is it Brooklyn, New Jersey or New York?
No, it's New York.
New
Part of New
York,
York
okay.
City. Brooklyn
Right.
is a burb.
A
It's one of
borough.
the boroughs.
Right, right. He sent an email to someone in the US, and I don't remember if it was a friend or an employee, but it was on the company email. And the email had words that said, "What do they think? We've got a bomb in there." So to put this in context, we are regularly shipping raw material components in specialty sealed containers. They were sensitive to temperature, and they had also a limited shelf life. And we also were shipping cell lines to a special repository in the US as part of our disaster recovery program in case our facility was shut down for unforeseen reasons. A few things transpired after this email sent out. The first thing that happened was a branch of the US Security and Intelligence Agency, and I do not know what it was called then, contacted the CEO and the board of directors. They also contacted the Canadian Intelligence, which I think it's called CSIS, but it could have another name. And we were infiltrated and bombarded with an inspection of our facilities. They wanted to meet the key players. They wanted to meet the scientist that sent this email that could cause a security threat to the US. And he also had to obtain a lawyer to defend himself. And what was his intention by sending out this email? So we had this formal investigation. Everything was kept confidential. We were listed on the NASDAQ exchange as well as the Toronto Stock Exchange. And we didn't want to get this out because the publicity could be really devastating for the company. And it was a high roller at the time. So the other thing that happened after the investigation, suddenly we received this request for proposal from DARPA, which is Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. And they asked us to submit a comprehensive document of our R&D and manufacturing facilities, along with a thorough vetting of the senior management team. I was a part of that senior management team. We had about 10 to 12 PhD on staff, and about half of them were from China. So in the RFP, we demonstrated our capabilities to develop a rapid anthrax test that would go through the FDA approval process, which we had demonstrated we had that capability. We made the submission, and after a lengthy review, they declined our proposal. And I don't know where the development of a rapid anthrax test landed after that. In looking back, I think it was one of those scare tactics, because I do remember hearing about anthrax testing and possible anthrax infection being dispersed in the population. So here's my observation on this event and what happened right after 9/11. I realized that surveillance is much more advanced than we know. And this event proves that it was at least 30 years old, and I think it's much older than that. I went on to Chat GPT just to kind of see internet, history of the internet, etc. And I think it's totally, totally off the mark on the development. It even says in 5G technology is in the 2020s, and it looks like we're much more advanced than that.
I think we're almost to 8G now. So we're way miles generationally
Right.
beyond 5G is like Korean War. It's like
Right.
we had that. That's microwave technology.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I,
Well,
I
that's
still,
like Korea.
yeah. I mean, I still, because we had servers in the US, we had servers in Toronto. How did they get these email? So
Well,
obviously
they
there's,
read all your mail, including
right,
your snail mail, but the email and the texting, and they must listen to the telephone calls between department heads or
right.
when they have a conference, when you have a meeting in the conference room. I'm
Yeah.
assuming they have listening devices underneath the table or in the chandelier or something like that, so that if anyone said a key word, that you could be a domestic terrorist or someone
Yes.
who is going to leak the secret
Yes.
files to the public. You can
Yeah.
see the public doesn't care. The public is not concerned at all.
Right.
They don't care. But now wasn't your sales office for SDX, this life science company? Their sales office was in the state of Virginia, was it not?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the
That's where the
headquarters
head of
of
sales
DARPA,
was.
CIA, Navy intelligence, the United States Marines. My brother spent a year training in Virginia. It's where the FBI
Okay.
trains. That's where the Marines train, the Army trains. And that's where all the intelligence agencies have offices, not just in Langley, but in
Right.
there are subcontracted corporate and LLC companies throughout the state of Virginia who you wouldn't even recognize as being intelligence agencies. And so the idea that they would ask for a request for proposal, an RFP from DARPA. Well, of course, I mean, you're in Virginia, they're in Virginia, you go to the same restaurants, everybody's in the same business. They make weapons and then they want to keep it silent. They want to conceal what they're really doing. And so, of course, they must ask you for one. Now, whether you get a deal with it, if your name is Jennifer Doudna, you're going to get a contract. If your name is Joy Weiss or Christopher Pitzer for Smart Dust, DARPA is going to give you, $800 billion or a
Right.
trillion. Because does DARPA have the money? No, but they have these friends in Switzerland that will give them $1 trillion. And then everybody at your company can get the G.I. Joe and the Kung Fu grip for Christmas for all their children because, hey, you're in the money because you're going to get paid. And if your company got a deal with DARPA, I mean, everybody's going to get a raise.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I did not know that about Virginia, having all those
And
intelligence.
West Virginia too. West Virginia is kind of the evil stepchild,
Right.
but that's where they test all the weapons out. I think they blow the hell out of this stuff in West Virginia, but it's all designed where everything's nice and we're polite. That's where the FBI is, the toothless FBI. They're still looking for Al Capone's treasure. Have they found Jimmy Hoffa's body yet? No. I mean, what crime did the FBI ever solve? Ever in the history of J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolston? They never solved any crimes. But they got Lee Oswald arrested, although he was arrested by the Dallas Police Department, not the FBI. I mean, if you really want to give credit where credit is due, FBI did not arrest Lee Oswald.
Right.
They want to take credit for it. All right. Well, anyway, so Rose, final thoughts here. You got 5 minutes, or you could do question
Okay.
and answer or whatever.
So my final comment about it was the company's vision was to develop personalized point of care tests that would allow targeted therapies to be used. And I found it very exciting because I thought, well, one size does not fit all. This is perfect But then when COVID happened, I see the wealth of knowledge that I accumulated and from this experience, and how I couldn't understand how an emergency use vaccine could be mandated for everyone. What happened to real symptoms? What happened to clinical trials? And even though I said in my email to you, Juxta, about the PCR test, where anybody that used the PCR test tested positive, and there were several African leaders that
DNA collections procedure that they mislabeled as a test. It's not a test. It collects. It can distribute Morgellons or aluminum foreign objects into your nasal passage, and it can extract the snot from your nose, which they then can put in your digital twin dossier. Has nothing to do with whether or not you have the flu, chickenpox, a sexually transmitted disease. PCR test not going to help you.
Yeah.
You're going to learn nothing. If a brick or a rock can test positive based on what rotation of your centrifuge you run, I don't think that's a test that Cheryl Hines should use to enter her Malibu home in Point Doom. She required a PCR test for everyone to make sure they didn't test positive, because Dr. Fauci said you can have COVID with no symptoms, asymptomatic COVID, that you could die of a dread disease having no symptoms whatsoever. Then I said, well, then why don't you put a face mask on all the doggies and the kitty cats and the pony and the bunny rabbits and the squirrels? What about them? They could be transmitting a deadly disease. But no, we didn't have a rule for doggies and kitty cats, did we? Yeah. So go on. I'm sorry, I interrupted, but go ahead.
No, they used to call that, didn't they call those people hypochondriacs, that they thought they had a disease, but they had no symptoms? I mean, the whole thing is a scam. It's a total scam. And this one size fits all, like they're going to look at it, they're going to present it as we're doing something personally for you, but the actual antidote or remedy will be what they select for you. So there is no freedom, absolutely.
It's not personalized care. It's not precision. Remember, they're coming out with these words: precision care, precision medicine, point of care, that it's for you, not for the others. It's just for you. It's customized. They don't use the word customized, but they say personalized care. But personalized means for Rose, not for Jennifer. But you're saying on the other side of the postal wall, in-town mail, out-of-town mail, the slots on the wall, there's only one bucket, and the in-town envelopes end up in the same bucket that the out-of-town mail ends up in. So there's only one transportation system for the mail, but they want it to be perceived as that it's personalized to in-town versus out-of-town mail. And you're saying that the COVID is the same for everybody. There's no personal aspect to it at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Any questions for Rose, Star Chamber members? It's your chance to talk to the life science industry insider.
Rose, I just wondered what happened to HIPAA too. Sorry.
Yes.
Pardon?
Who's going to go next? Go ahead.
They may not the same in Canada, but HIPAA laws went right out after 2015.
The window.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as HIPAA anymore. Ethics, schmethics, and called standard of care is whatever Dr. Fauci said. In other words, he's like the czar of the truth. He's the ministry of poppycock, and he's in charge of standard of care.
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer, you have a question.
Well, I remember the anthrax threat very well. I was in DC and then New York. And then there was a man in Virginia, I believe, or Maryland, who was arrested as supposedly being responsible for sending anthrax through the mail to congressmen and senators. And I think it was a setup. I don't think he did anything. And I didn't quite understand the connection between your firm and anthrax. Is that possible to summarize it briefly, or should I just listen to you on the replay?
No. Well, the anthrax, we were supposed to develop a rapid diagnostic test for anthrax.
Okay.
And
that would have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they asked us to do this proposal, which we worked on. It was very intense, and then it was rejected. But yeah.
People were scared. People were scared.
Mhm. So I don't even know, even now, I mean, is anthrax like real? Like I don't believe any of it anymore. But
Nobody's died in my town from anthrax. Nobody's died
right,
of COVID.
right.
We have Havana syndrome. We definitely have Havana syndrome ringing in my ears. We have polluted skies for going on 4 years. We got all kinds of environmental problems in my town, but we don't have any anthrax problems, and we don't have any COVID problems. And by the way, we don't have any coronavirus problems either. Boy, that lasted like a week. Then it was replaced by the COVID-19 certification of vaccine identity, real ID, artificial intelligence, COVID. It's tagging you like a dairy cow is COVID.
Mm.
Okay, so any final comments from you, Rose, on this matter of surveillance and the fact that it seems like you had this company that's traded on the stock exchange, but it seems like the intelligence services listen to every single communique that goes on in your building.
Yeah, definitely. That was very clear to me. Looking back, you're in the middle of it. A lot of turmoil in the company, but looking back, and especially when you've gone through your presentations, I realize it's really quite advanced. Surveillance is, and obviously surveillance means control.
Right. It's trace, track, and targeting people. Shirley, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it always produces fear. Always fear is the result. And then that is control. That controls us all, no matter
Right.
what, no matter what. And then you don't think properly, you just react and you follow the herd.
Well,
It's,
very well put there, Shirley. Any final thoughts, Rose? And then we're going to go on to Jennifer.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
You
that's
okay?
basically. Mhm.
All right. Well, Jennifer's going to, her topic crosses through all of the stories told so far, the three stories. And Jennifer spent a considerable amount of her professional life in Washington, D.C., affectionately known as the Swamp, which has a very tall obelisk. The Washington Monument and the reflection pond in front of it. Then they have the Lincoln Memorial, and they have all those signs and symbols in a place that's not a state. It's a great place that's not a state. It's a district, the District of Columbia. So, with no further ado, Jennifer, talk to us and regale us about pacification and control.
Well, for about, excuse me, for about a year or so, I've heard you talk about the spraying taking place in your town in Sonoma. And you have tried talking to your neighbors, your sheriff, you've taken pictures, taken videos, you've done podcasts. I mean, I don't think anyone could have tried harder to get people to pay attention to this, and your skies are really bad. And yet nobody seems to care or do anything or even look up. And I've been baffled by this. How can this happen? And in my town in Illinois, we have bad spraying too, but it's not. Yeah, that's
a good day. This is an example of a clear day in Sonoma. This is a clear day. This is
And
least worst it is.
and sometimes these spraying, I mean, it's absurd. They make these little X's, not little big. Then there's like spirals, like tornadoes.
I've seen
Then
every
zoom and zoom and zoom, zoom, zoom. You know,
I've seen
and
everything.
it's not a playing trail. It's weird.
No,
And
I'm ready to load a weapon. That's what I'm.
So
ready.
I wonder, and I have tried a little bit to talk to people, but it's blank stares. And I thought, how is this? And I've really thought about it and wondered, like, I just don't understand the disconnect, because we're talking about otherwise responsible people who really take care of their homes and their families and their jobs, and like, how could they just abdicate all responsibility for what's happening overhead without wanting to do or say anything? And so I thought, well, I think that this lack of response is an indication of the success of pacification and control military techniques. And because the endpoint of, I call it P&C for short, pacification and control, is so that people will be passive, infantile, uh, not wanting to question authority, be willing to live in a state of learned helplessness, and be very suspicious of people who actually do expose the threat or try to speak truth.
Right.
And it's just not getting through at all. So I've asked myself, really, I've been thinking about this, like how did we get to this point? And for a long time, I thought, well, it's the most recent technology. Everybody's on a phone or a laptop, and you don't have to go out of your house. You can just dial up anything you want. Everything can come to your house, and people socialize on their laptop, and maybe just people are just too affected by all this technology, right? So they're not even reacting to the sky. But then I thought, no, I think it goes deeper than that. And then I began to think about my own life, and most specifically the role of television. And starting in the 1950s, I'm a baby boomer. I grew up with 1950s television, first black and white, and then we got color, and that was very exciting. And, you know, we had the comedy shows like I Love Lucy and the Honeymooners, and the family shows like Leave It to Beaver, and then I loved Jack Benny, who was so funny, and I just would laugh and laugh, and this was just wonderful. And then and I realized that all this happiness and laughter that I associate with TV, well, in retrospect, I know it was giving me a dopamine spike, because that's the reward and happy center of your brain. It's happy. And so if something makes you happy, you just go back to it.
E-pharmacy.
Right?
E-pharmacy.
And so now you now associate this box with happiness, and it's, you know, it's what comes through the box that of course is affecting you, but the TV set itself has some veneration to it. It's like an altar, you know. It's and if you had two, when I was growing up, if you had two TVs, whoa, that was big stuff. All right. So and then I thought also about the role of advertising too. Now, if I saw an ad for Hostess cupcakes or Twinkies, I would ask my mother to buy me some Twinkies and Hostess cupcakes when we went to the little grocery store, and she would. She thought it was just fine. Then I'd go home and I'd eat the Hostess cupcakes in front of the TV, right? And then there used to be something called Eskimo pies. Those are ice creams wrapped in chocolate. We had some in the freezer. And if I'm watching TV and the ad came on for Eskimo pie, I would run to the freezer and get my Eskimo pie and eat it with the ad. And I thought, this is really great. So, I mean, I don't know, this is like weird stuff. But I mean, if this is, you know, I mean,
That's pacification and control.
Yeah, you better believe it. You better believe it. So now you are now being programmed and primed to start to believe whatever you hear and see on television. And then now and besides ice cream, television promoted cigarettes like crazy, and cars, and all kinds of pharmaceuticals and toys that everybody had to get at Christmas. I mean, and it's like, if it was on TV,
Barbie dolls,
Barbies,
and Barbie and Ken.
And so all these you know, so there's big money to be made, but there's something about if it was on TV that gave it a validity and importance to it, like, wow, as seen on TV, buy this truck or whatever. Okay, so this is all rolling out and it's affecting people's psyches. And then the big power punch of the Kennedy assassination in '63, right? And
CBS presenting to us with Walter Cronkite.
And Dan
Rather.
Yeah. And so people were glued to their sets 24/7. They used to say television came of age during that weekend because everyone was just glued all weekend until and through the funeral. And for extra spice, they had Jack Ruby killed. So that was like a little action in the third act, right?
And Shirley pointed out little John saluting the American Masonic flag that draped his father's casket. He saluted the American flag draping his father's casket as it paraded past them.
Right. And
that was on television.
So when you have a tragedy, who do you turn to? And in this case, people turned to the television, and they sought reassurance and comfort from Walter Cronkite, basically. and not their priest or rabbi or pastor or parent or something. They went to TV. TV now has a role that's almost like a religious role. It's like, oh my gosh, you don't just go to TV for fun or find out what ice cream to eat. You now are in grief struck and you go to TV to be comforted and to be told what happened and how, what to react to. So now, once you've got people this connected psychologically and emotionally and brain chemistry wise to this box, juxtaposition, I think you said your father called it the idiot box or something like that. So yeah, it was. And but now there isn't any lie that you can't sell as long as it's on TV. And you've got moon landings and you've got the so-called Manson
Now
family.
the TV follows us around with the stupid mobile phone.
Yep. And all the things, Vietnam and 9/11 and Facebook and technology, and then COVID, and
Unabomber, the Oklahoma City
it
bomber.
goes on and on.
And remember, before we had Walter Cronkite, we had the New York City bomber. That's like a ritual. The New York City bomber, the mad bomber of New York. He came first. He was before Ted Kaczynski.
I'm not
He was
familiar with
before
that.
Timothy McVeigh. We
Yeah.
had Mad Bomber in New York. Do you know how many people got killed in the Mad Bomber in New York who went on for 13 years? Zero people died. Zero. None. And then everybody's in fear of this bomber who doesn't kill anyone.
Yeah, well, it can. What became the norm is, and I think still is if it's important, it will be on TV,
Right.
and if it's not on TV, it's not.
It
important.
won't be.
And so, the elections, anything you want to think about. So I think really, it sounds simplistic, but I think if TV covered these chemtrails, there would be a different reaction. But because TV doesn't,
right.
People think, well, it doesn't matter because, if it was important, TV would tell me. So I don't have to believe my own eyes here because TV is my, are my eyes. TV's my brain now. And so now, just as people just have surrendered unconsciously their critical thinking skills and ability to question authority. They don't want to question authority. They're very happy having television tell them what to think and how to behave. So that made it very easy to roll out COVID with all the rules and the mandates and scare people every night by the number of COVID deaths that are being reported. And so you follow orders, you take your mask, you do your social distancing and so forth. And so now people, as I've been saying in some of our classes, I'm concerned that people just turned over so much of their power and thinking to technology in general, and now they're turning it over to artificial intelligence, which is a computer brain. So now we've got computer brains replacing human brains for some thinking and cognitive activities. So,
can I just interject one quick point here, having to do with the box, this electronic with light energy too. It's ultrasonic and magnetic resonance electronic box. You plug it in and then it gives you the power of suggestions. The military gave it a name for that. It's called cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare. It's cognitive warfare, but the formal name is cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare, meaning it involves electrical impulses pulsing. It's not a steady beam, it's a series of pulses. And it has sound. We hear music, we hear the Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore's voice as sound. Jack Benny, this terrible playing of the violin. That's like putting, your fingernails on a chalkboard. Jack Benny playing the violin. So you have sound weapon, you have light emission, and you have electronic magnetic resonance coming out of this idiot box. And now you have it coming out of your mobile phone, your laptop computer, your smart glasses, your Fitbit. And you know what? I got bad news for all of us. If you threw away your computer and your television and you threw away your refrigerator and you got rid of all your LED lights and you threw out all the electrical appliances, you're still got a problem because across the street you got LED streetlights. Your neighbor has a ring camera. The city has contracted vendors to install smart meters in and around your home. Every one of those things, when they come to repaint your curb, paint it red for no parking or paint the crosswalk, they've got nano bots in the paint. And if you go down to the hardware store and you buy some paint to paint your house, you're installing a surveillance system with the sensors. The sensors are in the paint. So even if you got rid of your cell phone and even if you got rid of everything, if you got the COVID vaccine, you just loaded it up on sensors. You have aluminum, chalk, and arsenic poison in your body. What were you thinking? Obviously, you weren't thinking. There's no thought process at all. If you ran out to get an experimental vaccine, not approved, no trials to look at, not that you'd read them. Person who's dumb enough, if I told you to drink this strychnine poison, are you going to believe me? Are you going to believe me or Dr. Fauci? Who are you going to believe? And the answer is you're going to believe Dr. Fauci, a little dwarf on the TV set. So the military calls what you're described there, Jennifer, cognitive neuroscience, electronic warfare. Back to you.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned music because I forgot to mention that 3 months after the Kennedy assassination, the Beatles appeared for the first time on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
And, millions of kids around the world became obsessed with the Beatles and then other bands, which were then introduced on television. And that just became another way that people used or needed and even bonded with the TV, if that's the right word. I mean, that was just another way of affecting your brain and your happiness quota. Just listening.
And everyone changed their wardrobe to whatever the Beatles were wearing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember? And then we had the psychedelic rollout, and then we had the tune in, turn on, drop out, 1967, and then everyone got a mod belt and a peace sign and psychedelic T-shirts like the Grateful Dead promoted for their concerts. What kind of a band would name itself the Grateful Dead? I guess yes. People that don't want to live with a polluted sky would be grateful if they were dead.
Well, I mean, when you through television, teenagers the world over could see anything from the Beach Boys to the Rolling Stones to all the Monkees, the Mamas and Papas, and I mean, all these bands were just brought out, and so there was this huge cultural impact, which is another way of pacification and control. Because if you're really happy and stoned listening to Mamas and Papas, you're not thinking, well, I need to be a critical thinker and become a good citizen.
I mean, Rose sent Neil Young out here, a polio survivor from Toronto, and he's singing about Heart of Gold. Like, what, did you discover gold in New Helvetia, Daddy-O? And he's talking about peace and love, except Neil Young forgot to mention, he's draft age eligible, but he's a Canadian and he's not going to get sent to Vietnam. So it's just big, bad Neil Young. No way. I'm getting a contract with Warner Brothers. I'm selling my soul to Warner Brothers for the rest of my life. And I am never going to Vietnam, because I'm a polio survivor from Toronto. And he was, really big in my neighborhood. Neil Young, a Toronto, Ontario, Canada hero, folk hero. He wasn't from California, but, he became famous here. All right, back to you, Jennifer. Go ahead.
So that's, I just think unconsciously people have learned to just wait to be told what to think or what's important. Remember, Walter Cronkite used to end his broadcast by saying, and that's the way it is, or no, that's the way it is, or that's the way it was, or that's the way it is Tuesday, March, whatever, and then you think, yeah, that's right. I mean, whatever he says, I mean, that's the way it is.
And everybody else said that he's the most trusted voice in America.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
he would never lie to you.
So anyway, this is, if we could reverse pacification and control, people would begin to think critically, then we could begin to turn this around. But I don't know if that's possible, but that's how I see it.
All right. Any questions for Jennifer from the group here? Let's start with Carrie. Do you have questions for Jennifer?
No, I agree with everything that you were saying, that we've been inundated through the box.
Yeah.
Okay, Rose, questions for Jennifer?
Um, yeah, more of a comment. I mean, the TV definitely. I do understand that the younger generation, I don't see them watching too much TV. But obviously we've got our cell phones, laptops, the things that are popping up, this and that. And I almost feel like there's this generation, I can't even communicate with them because they're looking at other things and I'm looking at other things. It's like we're not even close.
No.
So it's not even even the TV kind of uniforms us and it helps us focus, but we're on different planes right now. That's how I see it.
I agree that it's not so centralized. The messaging isn't so centralized.
Right.
And there's all this internet, YouTube and independent media and so forth. But I think the big influencers on the internet are highly controlled and monitored, and
Yes.
and so the message is being controlled
And personalized, right? It's like
yeah.
personalized medicine. We have personalized media with the
Right.
alternative media. You've got your Alex Jones, your Joe Rogan, you got your Anthony Napolitano for people that believe in saluting a 13 stripe colonial flag from Switzerland. You got Anthony Napolitano, a guy that wore a black robe. Like you're going to listen to him for medical advice. And then he's got Jeffrey Sachs on there, a PhD from Harvard. We've got Stupider Peters, who's born on April Fool's Day. Anyone who promotes Stu Peters, like you need to go get your head examined and get a different brain. His name spells stupider. Like if you promote Stu Peters, it means you're stupider than anyone on the internet. That's how stupid you are. And there's millions of stupid people on the internet. That makes you like chairman of the board of the stupid company. Stupider Peters, born on April 1st, 1980, tattoos over his whole body, a member of the Screen Actors Guild, wanted for domestic violence against his wife in Florida, and still an unexplained double homicide that he was involved with, where he's the only witness and the only person who survived a bail bondsman event in Minnesota. And he's friends with Jesse Ventura's son, Terrell. I mean, Jesse Ventura is COINTELPRO, United States Navy intelligence officer. And that would make his son not credible. And that would make Stu Peters the friend of a not credible Navy intelligence spook. Why would you ever believe anything comes out of his pie hole? And all the guests on his show, Brother Nathaniel, that's not even his name. He's a Jewish, Judaism turned Russian Orthodox Christian, carrying a crucifix like it's a bayonet dagger. He wields it like a dagger. He doesn't even believe in it. And like you've lost your mind. And that sums up all the major presenters, along with RFKJ, Megyn Kelly, James Woods, any Hollywood person. You should never believe anyone in the music business or Hollywood. They have a gun to their head. They're reading a script. James Woods told us that his house burned down in the Pacific Palisades fire. And there's Megyn Kelly like stoking the flames. Then we find out a week later, his house didn't burn down. And Megyn Kelly didn't correct her mistake. She didn't apologize for being a pseudo journalist. Clearly, she's not a journalist. She's just a little pretty face that blurts out BS and balderdash. So anyway, that's what I would say about that is that we are in the matrix of mendacity. It's the metaverse. We're in the augmented reality, and they're trying to push us into the virtual, where 100% of our world is fake. Because right now it's about 90% fake and 10% real. Like that's real pollution in a sky that's trying to be blue. In a sky that's trying to be blue, and birds are flying on borrowed wings. I feel so sorry for the bees, and I feel sorry for the birds who have to fly around in that crap every day. They don't have a house. They can't shelter in place. and nobody cares. Nobody's going to do anything about it. Any follow-up question there, Rose? Okay, how about Shirley? Any question for Jennifer?
I think it's really interesting how everything with the media is a narrative and it changes. And it was eye-opening at the time for me to see that the music industry was part of the military, and it makes so much sense. It's all part of it. A lot of people, me included, thought, oh, this band is coming up with this music, but I've learned along the way it's not them writing the music, and there is a narrative though to it. It's all pulled into it, and the young people, it's very personalized now with computers with their cell phones, which is attached to them. So there is a difference there in communication between us all. And I was making this comparison a while back about like Helvetia, right? And we have the American Indians. They actually took children away from their parents and put them in these boarding schools and taught them Christian values, took away their clothes, put them all in uniforms, and I thought, well, nowadays, are we going through that Helvetia also? Like where I was living, I think I was phase 2 of phase 3.
Right.
But I don't think, with the technology, they already kind of have our kids. This mind thing, they've pulled them maybe into the more and more the metaverse. Maybe it's not really even a physical thing that we have to be.
Well, the thing about the technology, TVs or your computers or your phone, it's instant gratification. You can turn on and hear this great music. I mean, you talk about music, and they didn't even write their own music, but the music was great. And then you start to idolize these musicians. And then again, you associate this wonderful experience with the device that enabled you to have this music, which is great in and of itself, but it's all part of a piece that the box, the technology, the laptop, it's containing control mechanisms in ways that know how to hit our brain receptors. That's my belief.
All right. Well, that's our show. That's our show, everybody, for tonight. I want to make one final thought, observation that cuts across everybody who participate. I want to thank everyone for preparing and having their outlines and telling their personal experiences. Those are the best stories. Those are the best stories. And we're all older. We're more mature. So there's no way we could invite a bunch of 18 to 30-year-olds on the show to do this. They could never replicate this. They don't know anything about, getting up every morning, dressing up, going to work, going to meetings, being held accountable, getting a performance appraisal, looking for a job, doing interviews, shaking hands. That's all been stripped away from the whatever Gen Z, Gen XYZ we're in now. But whether it's the kids the few kids that watch my channel, or whether it's people that are 90 years old plus, everyone is being treated the same universally. We have one bank for the whole world. We have one Geneva, Switzerland, one NATO force for the whole world, one banking system, which includes cryptocurrency, and soon central bank digital currency, which is another form. It's an evil twin of crypto. Programmable money. In other words, if you don't get a bird flu vaccine, I will turn your money off. How do you like them apples, right? That's going to be the same system if you're 18 years old or if you're 98 years old. It's going to be like precision medicine. It's the same product for everybody. Point of care. In other words, at the point of a gun. Point of care is I'm pointing a weapon at your head and I'll pull the trigger unless you comply. Because what we're all taught from birth, obedience, don't question authority. Don't question your orders. Just we follow orders or people die. It's that simple. All right. That's obedience. Number 2 is code of silence. Omerta code of silence. We always think the mafia does it, but so does the military. So does every military contractor. So does every single audit company, like the one I work for. Every single corporation that's being audited, they have a code of silence too. Did anyone blow the whistle on Enron? No. And there must have been thousands of people that knew. And all the customers over at General Electric, they knew. They made $13 billion profit trashing Enron. So there were corporation partners making big money on Enron, but they didn't say anything. And that's Omerta code. And the media has an Omerta code. The media does not report on chemtrails. That's a code of silence, meaning that the media, newspaper, radio, television, and the internet keeps this a secret. And it's only kooky people like the Star Chamber who talk about the polluted air. Then there's a world mission goal. The problem is none of the workers in the Army decide the mission. The obedience authority decides the mission. Now, if you want to go into the Jesuits or the Sacred Heart Convent or the Immaculate Heart Convent for women, they have an oath of poverty that they agree not to own anything and be happy and pray. They also have an oath of chastity that you can throw on in addition to obedience, silence, and a purpose of world mission. But you know, every Hollywood Screen Actors Guild actor for television and film and people who sign a music contract, every one of them has the same policy of an oath of poverty. Do you know that? Let me give you some names of some very successful people that allegedly made a lot of money. Okay. Michael Jackson, Sharon Stone, Kevin Spacey, Nicolas Cage, Tori Spelling, whose father owned the largest mansion in Holmby Hills, like 35,000 square foot home, 10-car garage. She filed for bankruptcy. His daughter. How could that happen? Judy Garland of The Wizard of Oz, Over the Rainbow. Judy Garland living in a little tear-down dump of an apartment when she's murdered to death in that tear-down dump of an apartment in West London. Charlie Sheen, living the dream, snorting coke, dating babes, working with Heidi Fleiss, bankrupt. Mickey Rourke, he's got a GoFundMe page. He needs rent for an apartment. He's homeless. Mickey Rourke played a big badass in Hollywood. Ed McMahon, Johnny Carson's introduction, he's bankrupt. Remember, Donald Trump was going to help him with his mortgage up there on Coldwater Canyon and Mulholland Drive. Didn't they pay you to work on the Tonight Show for 30 years? What about all the things you pitched? Alpo for dog food? Didn't Alpo pay you? Did you spend all that money, Ed? Ed McMahon, homeless. Okay, so don't you get it? None of those people owns anything. As long as they're contributing to the collective, they can stay in a military-owned property like Sharon Tate did, like Abigail Folger did, right? Like Lena LaBianca did, you know, and it goes until you're dead. Until you're dead, or they throw you into a creek bed and they decide you're not worth a bullet or a bayonet, so we'll just throw you in a creek bed, and then people can send money to your GoFundMe page. Now, that's pacification and control of all the entertainment people, which is a cult of military. They have not just the obedience and Omerta code, they have a vow of poverty that if they break their rule, they're going to be homeless. And that goes to everything that Jennifer was saying. She's describing, you know, the vulgar, profane people who watch, you know, I Love Lucy or Dick Van Dyke Show, like I did. I'm very vulgar and profane. But had I worked with Abigail Folger, you know, maybe I'd be living in a, you know, bigger house with a nicer car, but I wouldn't last long, right? I mean, they're not going to put up with my shenanigans. So anyway, that kind of sums up where we are today, is that no matter where you are on the pyramid of power or the obelisk, whether you're at the top and your name is Gordon Getty or your name is Gavin Newsom, who's Gordon Getty's, beneficiary, they funnel the money through Gordon Getty to pay for his, he'll be running for president, I'm assuming. The next fake election will have Gavin Newsom. I don't think they're going to bring back Kamala Harris, with her cackling cacophony of chaos, and will not be burdened from the past, and let me tell you about being a sugar baby for Willie Brown, the state assembly. They never even talk about the sugar baby. She's a sugar baby for like 10 years at least. Anyway, what I'm saying is the people who you think are in charge have no authority. None. Donald Trump's not running anything. He's not involved. I don't think the Pentagon, briefs him. And I don't think the Pentagon's in charge either. They're making all the decisions in Geneva and Brussels, NATO, because NATO forces will close the Strait of Hormuz, or NATO forces will open the Strait of Hormuz. It's got nothing to do with Donald Trump. He can't pay his bills. We're running a $2 trillion deficit. So Canada's not running the show, and neither is America, and neither is Argentina or Venezuela. They're not in charge. All right. So somebody else is running the show. The people that ran the World War I and World War II and Rwanda and Terra Swarm is who ran, Crimson Storm. And it's the same people in the House of Peace in Geneva. That's who did it. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you out in the lobby for a beluga caviar and some Dom Perignon champagne. Good night, everybody.